Alright, this is John Cole with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. In this episode, we're going to answer your guys' questions in my monthly Q&A. If you guys have a question that you would like me to answer, I'll post a link down below to the community tab where you can actually put your question in there that may be selected for next month's Q&A. Alright, let's get into the question. Let's see. H. Leatherby. Hello, John. I just received my Dynapro vacuum blender from you and fired it up for the first time today. I did a batch of your green juice and root juice using Alexa's nut milk bag extraction. Absolutely love it. One question I had on the root juice: despite using a full jicama and some celery for moisture, it was still too dry for the blender to mix up all the way, and I had to add some water. I know you've talked about not wanting to water down your juices. Do you have any tips for what else I can add to the root juice to give it enough liquid? Thank you, Heidi. All right, Heidi, yeah, you want to use some like highly liquid vegetables, or fruity vegetables, I would call them. So like celery would work, romaine hearts would work. Even better than that would be like cucumbers would work really well. So it wouldn't be an entirely root juice. You would add other items. The challenge with roots is that they have a really hard, dense texture and they don't have a lot of water to explode into the mixture. Another thing you might want to use, if you guys could find it near you, is winter melon, which is should be available at most Asian markets this time of year. Actually, it's really like just it looks like a watermelon, but they're basically like cucumbers because they're not sweet at all. They'll add a lot of good liquid to your root juice. The other thing I have done, if you really want to keep the root juice, you know, straight up, I've actually just bought like pasteurized carrot juice, or you could get some HPP carrot juice or other juice that you could buy in the store, Costco, Sprouts, Whole Foods, and just pour that in as the base of your root juice, so you could still have more roots, even if it has been heat processed a little bit. To make it blend up. Of course, you could also add water or coconut water. Another thing I've done in the past is actually just make a batch of apple juice in the vacuum blender, then put that aside and then use part of that in the root juice. And now I'm having an apple root juice, but I'm using apple juice instead of the water to get it to blend up. You could, of course, if you make a big batch of carrots in another kind of juicer, you could have that juice to then use in the vacuum blender to get it to blend up properly. I've also used, like in the past, just like orange juice or apple juice, apples and oranges as well. Hope that helps you out. Let's see, next question is from Caroline Miller. You've been mentioning your recent microbiome test, but I still haven't seen a full video discussing it. Would you be willing to share what you've learned? I've been enjoying your whiteboard lectures, which are so well researched. I appreciate all the obscure information you share with your viewers. All right, thank you, Caroline. Yeah, I'm a little bit different than most people out there that repeat the dogma. I try to take some science in and experiment on my own self to see what's happening and see how I can improve, since there's lots of research, published studies on microbiome lately, and I want to literally see how I could kind of get ahead of the curve here. So what I'll tell you is this: my microbiome test, I'm still learning about it. I've got 2 tests so far, so I got a baseline and then a second baseline after modifying very few things to see where I'm at. And then I started like a supplement program and really ramping up my prebiotics to see if it's going to make a difference. I mean, of course, my microbiome test was better than the average American, but in my opinion, that's a very low bar to meet. I can say that my probably the populations of the different diversities of some of the main types that should be in my gut were actually not there, which was surprising. And I will also say that I believe, what I'll say is this. I'll say whatever you guys eat is basically the microbes you guys are going to have. So I've eaten a diet that have encouraged for the last 27 years the microbiome that I have. For example, in my microbiome test, part of it said that I don't have the microbiome or the gut buddies that digest starch. Now, why would that be as a raw foodist for 27 years that basically shunned and did not eat any heat processed starches, or basically any starches in any large quantities whatsoever, because I pretty much ate fruit for my calories, not cooked starches like, a lot of people would. That limited my microbiome. So now I'm trying to work on getting the microbes that digest the starches because they weren't in my gut. Furthermore, to go even deeper, you know, I was not breastfed as a child, and I believe this put me at a significant disadvantage, and why my microbiome may not look like how I want it to look, with some really, you know, some species that should be pretty much dominant or should be in your microbiome for a healthy gut. I won't mention them right now because I'm doing some testing to see if I could kind of hack it and get them to reappear and be in greater quantities. So stay tuned for that, but I would recommend you guys get your microbiome test to see, at least get a baseline now to see what you've eaten in the past, how it affected your microbiome. And if you're not happy with it, you know, then you can take it to the next level and maybe do some changes and then get a retest and see what happens, right? This is a whole new area, and then people are saying, like, sometimes they say, oh, that's not a good microbiome test and all this kind of stuff, and who really knows what's optimal, you know, to have in your gut. But, you know, what I think is this: I want to have a great diversity of microbes, and especially some of the species of microbes and bacteria that have been shown to be in, like, longer lived people and people with a stronger immune system. I mean, like, that's what I want. And I wasn't quite there eating a raw foods diet for the last 27 years to the best of my ability, you know, so I'm thinking that just because it's raw doesn't mean it's healthy. Is a video I made a long time ago, and you guys should watch that video if you haven't, the series. And another thing I would actually add to that video is, how does it affect your microbiome? Because these things were not really thought about when raw foods was invented. And if you're eating a, you know, fruit-based diet, your gut buddies are going to reflect that, and you might not have the diversity that you specifically want. Maybe you'll be fine. Maybe you want to do microbiome testing. You think it's all hogwash and you're just going to eat your fruit and be happy. Well, then do it. That's your total right to be happy. Do whatever you think. You know, I'm here to make sure I have the strongest immune system and the most longevity potential, because I just want to enjoy my life more. And, you know, so that's what I'm doing. So that's all I'm going to tell you on that. I'm in no position at this point to make a whiteboard on microbiome. I may have some other videos on whiteboard on, you know, ways to improve your, like, prebiotic fibers and resistant starches. You know, those are planned, but yeah, I'm still far away from having any kind of microbiome episode. All right, next question is from Julie Jizz. What omega-3 supplement do you use? How do the algae omega-3 supplements compare to the fish oil supplements made from small fish in terms of omega-3 content and heavy metal and or other contaminants? All right, Julie, so I know little about fish oil supplements and small fish. I know they can be highly, basically, processed, and they could be rancid and all kinds of things. They could also have lots of contamination. So the question for me is, where does the fish get its, you know, omega-3 fatty acids, or more importantly, DHA and EPA is what I'm talking about. Because, I mean, you could eat flax seeds and get, you know, omega-3s, but our body should, if working properly, convert it to DHA and EPA, which, you know, I may disagree with some other people on raw foods that say you don't need to supplement. You know, I would say, I supplement my DHA, and I think it is quite essential for long-term health and cognitive health and brain health personally. Of course, you guys could do what you want. Let's see, so the one I was using this brand called IWI. I think it's like grown in Texas. It's an American company, grows algae, and then they basically process it and do a little bit better processing job than other companies, and add cofactors along with just the DHA and EPA, so you get better uptake. And I like that product a lot. That being said, I am now taking a product called Complement. So that's Complement has the EPA DHA. I believe they use it from the IWI brand, I'm not sure. And then they also add in, like, you know, the other nutrients like iodine, vitamin D and B12 that vegans or people on a plant-based diet may need. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And to me, like, I would not even just take fish, because if I don't need to take fish, I'm not going to take fish. And my goal is to always eat lower on the food chain, and fish gets their DHA from algae. And the more steps involved when they catch the fish, I mean, if you're going to take, you know, if you're going to take a fish supplement for your DHA and EPA, I mean, I would just say, you know, go catch some fish. Go catch the cold water fish and have the omega-3s and eat them. You know, I'm in much more favor of that, because the oils won't be rancid. There'll be other cofactors along with that. And if I could surely just get the algae that they extract the DHA and EPA from, I would just eat that in large quantities. Unfortunately, it's not available at this time that I'm aware of. Also, I guess it has maybe a high rancidity point unless they process it and then put it in a little capsule so it's like not exposed to air. So that's what I'll say. Next question is from Stephen Fraser. Any concerns about neighborhood cats using your yard as a cat box? I mean, this much. So here's the thing. As you can see, I'm in my garden. My okra is just towering. They're really tall. You can see okra on there. I got to harvest them today. And my peppers are just going off. I don't know if you guys can see, but like, I mean, these are just wild plants. And probably can't see this low, but there's one plant that's like super low and it's just loaded up with peppers. I need to harvest. I'm in a bad, naughty boy, not eating as much out of my garden as I should be because I've been so busy. But, you know, pretty much no. Once the garden is grown in, cats don't use your, you know, my garden as a litter box. What I will say is when my beds are empty in between seasons or when I have small plants, that's when it is more attractive to them to use it as a litter box. I also know when I mix up a bed of soil and I have it in a big, like, my wheelbarrow or like in a concrete mixing tub and I mix up a blend of soil and I leave it there overnight, they'll use it as a litter box. So then I have to like put in like nursery flats upside down so they can't get in there because what does that look like to them, right? It looks like a litter box to them. So keep the soil full and, you know, don't always have something growing and don't leave just empty soil laying around for them to like use it as a litter box. And they won't. And I have lots of neighborhood cats kind of hanging out in my yard like all the time. And it's actually bad because they attack my dog, which is not fun. All right, next question is from MAC. Do you have any advice on how to feed a 8-month-old healthy, no allergies baby? Have you had any babies or plan to have? So I have not had any babies. I plan on having them, but I can't have them myself. So that's part of my plan that is not up to me. I need to find a partner that wants to have some babies. And I know some of you guys wrote me like, John, there's a website you could just find like a woman who wants to have babies and then they could use your sperm and all this stuff. And I'm not quite at that point. I really would like to have my own children and raise them properly and not just be like a sperm donor to have kids. So my advice on feeding an 8-month-old, like I have not researched that topic, so don't listen to me. But what I do know, because I have researched microbiome because that's been one of my areas of interest, and especially looking at how the baby's microbiome is formed. And, you know, in breast milk, it's the optimal food for babies. Why? Because, you know, there's large percentages of fat and protein, but more importantly, the third biggest component of breast milk is prebiotic fibers, human milk oleosaccharides, which are not digestible by the baby, but digestible by the microbiome and helps to form and put in the microbiome that the baby will have for life. So it would be very important for me and my partner to breastfeed to make sure that my baby gets those HMOs. There's over 200 different types of HMOs which cannot be duplicated in any kind of supplement or any kind of, you know, formula, right? They might have maybe up to 5 HMOs in formula, but human breast milk has like over 200 identified. And the other thing is that some women, depending on where you're from and your genetics, you may not be an HMO producer, which is scary to me. So like I would want to get my mama's breast milk tested and make sure she's a producer of HMOs, because I think 20% of people are not. And if you're not, then I would try to get breast milk from a lady who is or something, maybe breast milk exchange, and or then supplement my baby with, you know, just the 5 HMOs that are available as in a supplement form that are human identical. But, you know, in my opinion, there's no substitute for breast milk. And my goal with my children, of course, this would have to do with my wife as well, which we would hopefully discuss, and hopefully she would be on board too, is that our child would basically drink mother's breast milk until the child wanted to no longer eat it or drink it for however long that needs to be, because I feel it's very important for a child to be breastfed for a good significant amount of time, and make sure, number 2, that the mama's microbiome is in good shape, so that can be passed on to the child, and also have good microbiome influences, you know, in the child's area, and not be like my mom was like, oh, you can't play outside, it's too dirty. right? Dirt is good, man. Like, we want to get our children exposed to beneficial microbes. And here's the thing, HMOs, they prevent your child from getting sick because they will actually latch on to bad bacteria and shuttle them out of the body, in addition to forming the correct microbes in our bodies. As a child, I had lots of infections and took lots of antibiotics, which is really bad for the microbiome. And this is likely because I was not breastfed. All right, so that's all I'm going to say about that because I don't really know a whole bunch. All right, next question also from Julie Jizz. When you live in the tropics, will you eat tropical greens, okra, katuk, kalu, etc. as a mainstay in your diet for 6 to 7 months of the year, or still buy organic greens that are shipped in? Would it be healthy to rely on these greens completely? What about turmeric ginger? Grow your own and freeze it for use throughout the year, or buy fresh turmeric ginger are only harvested at one point in the year? Can you juice frozen turmeric? All right, lots of questions in there. So when I live in the tropics, I will attempt to have different microclimates and even make microclimates, like maybe putting up a hoop house with like swamp cooler to have a cooler environment, and or even grow inside the house to grow larger varieties of different greens besides the ones that could grow outside. That would be my goal over buying imported traditional vegetables. That being said, I would do it all. You know, most of my food, if I had, would come from my garden. I would seek out varieties, like there are tropical lettuce varieties you could grow in the tropics. They're a bit stronger tasting and probably healthier, granted, than like shipped in organic romaine hearts from California. So, you know, I would do it all. So I would always I always try to focus on like eating as much of what I grew first, and always rotating the different ingredients. And of course, I would grow a lot more different tropical greens besides okra, katuk, kalu. You know, I'd grow Malabar spinach, Egyptian spinach, like sweet potato leaves. Like, there's so many different greens that you could eat, and I would grow as many of them as I possibly could to always keep a good rotation. And then I would also buy, when they're on sale or a good deal, imported organic produce that I was not growing. So I think that's really important to eat the diversity, whether you got to grow it. Hopefully that's most of what you're eating, and then maybe a smaller percentage of things that you buy that are imported, you know. And I would probably make sure it's organic and at a good price. So like, for example, when I go to Puerto Rico, I'll be growing a lot of my own tropical greens, but then I'll be visiting the Costco there. Costco's the best place for organic in Puerto Rico that I saw of all the places I visited. And I, you know, just buy the organic greens there that look good. You know, they have organic romaine hearts, organic spinach, organic, you know, spring mix. I mean, because those would be kind of treats, because I probably wouldn't get to the Costco maybe like but once a month or something. And I'd stock up on as many of those as I can, unless I found other places to buy them. And then, of course, but I'd probably be mostly eating my greens. So, yeah. So anyways, let's see. Would it be healthy to rely on these greens completely? You know, I think it's a diversity, and the question is, how many different greens are you growing? Are you growing 3 kinds of greens? I don't think that's necessarily healthy to rely on 3 greens. Some of those greens may be high in oxalates and other things that, you know, I don't mind getting in my diet in proper amounts, but I wouldn't want to just focus on that, like New Zealand spinach, very high in oxalates. I wouldn't want to just focus on New Zealand spinach, okra greens, and callaloo or something like that. And katuk, if you juice it and eat too much of it, it can cause some health challenges, actually, if you concentrate it. So yeah, so diversity is king, and not eating too much of any one green, I think, would be most beneficial. What about turmeric ginger? Grow your own and freeze it for use throughout the year, or buy it fresh, as they're only harvested one point in the year. So if you are growing it yourself, you know, you can dig it up at different times of the year. Sometimes of the year, of course, they're gonna be really small, and sometimes they're gonna be a lot bigger and more nice. And if you're just buying it at the farmer's market, it is traditionally harvested during certain times of the year. That is true. So, but you know, you could buy it at the farmer's market throughout the season when it's available, and then put it in the ground, like in a pot, and kind of keep it a little bit moist, but not too wet, and it'll just live alive under the ground. It may sprout out a little bit, and right now I got some sprouting turmeric that I'm still using, you know. And let's see, so I don't recommend juicing frozen vegetables. Like, if you freeze them and then thaw them and juice them, like, it's kind of getting gross. You could do that. What I would do instead is I would probably just powder them up and dehydrate them and have in a powdered form, or juice them and then dry them and then use them that way, I guess, if you really wanted it. Of course, for me here, I just buy imported turmeric and ginger year round. But if I grew it, I'd grow as much as I could and then buy it the other times of the year that I didn't grow it, because I don't want to try to freeze it and do all this crazy stuff, you know. It's just, I got not too much time to be screwing with stuff anymore. Let's see, Pamela Cartwright asks, best inexpensive juicer or mid-range? Thanks. All right, Pamela, so what do you mean by inexpensive? If you guys want to get a new juicer, I mean, I'd recommend the Shine juicer. It's about $150. That's the one I use for travel, but I wouldn't use that like if I had a home. If I had a home, like, I'd get a real juicer, because it's like there's no substitute for a good juicer. Now, if you absolutely can't afford a brand new juicer for like $400 to $600, is what a good one sells for these days, honestly, this is what I'd recommend for you. I'd recommend checking OfferUp or Craigslist or maybe even eBay and finding a good brand juicer like Omega, like a Nama, you know, like a Kuvings. It's like, you know, somebody's selling for a fraction of the price new because they used it once and then they never juiced again. On Craigslist or OfferUp, you can maybe find a juicer for sometimes pennies on the dollar if you just look and are patient, because somebody sell a Omega 8006 for like $50 or $80 or something, right? So I'd much rather have you guys buy like a used good brand juicer made in Korea, you know, that actually is probably maybe even potentially less than a brand new Shine juicer made in China with a 3-year warranty. Even though the used juicer won't have a warranty, some of those solid Korean made juicers like last for years and will outlast a cheap Chinese juicer in the lower mid-range, because basically you get what you guys pay for. All the Korean juicers, I mean, they start at usually these days like around $350, you know, probably like, actually more like $350, $400 these days actually. So yeah, that's what I'm going to tell you. Oh, another question from Julie Jizz. Do you still recommend seaveg.com for seaweed powder? What seaweeds are the most beneficial if I can only buy 3 max? Also, any thoughts on the heavy metals in seaweed and Prop 65 warning? Thank you. All right, Julie, so, you know, I had a bad customer experience with seaveg.org. I don't particularly care for them, but will use them if they have something that no other place has that I could find. You know, I prefer to use, like, you know, small growers and harvesters or wild foragers of seaweeds that sell them. So my favorite is naturespiриtherbs.com. So they're like up on the California coast. I've been buying from them for years. And they have like a 6 seaweed mix that I buy. And so like if you could only buy 3, that's like 1, because it has 6 different seaweeds that they harvest by hand, dry in the sun, and then basically powder into powder and then sell it to you. And that's just like the no-brainer. You know, I'll add that to many of my dressings and soups sometimes to get some of those trace minerals in me, as well as some of the other nutrients in the seaweeds. Other than that, you know, I shop around, so I just got some seaweed from France. It's sea spaghetti. I got like, what is it, I don't know, 2 or 4 kilos. It's like a whole bunch, because I want to make like real spaghetti, not like this stupid kelp noodles that I'm not a fan of, which are basically highly processed white powder they add with water and then extrude them, which are basically 0 calories and have very little nutrients, if anything, because it's just a highly processed product. But many raw foodists use it as a staple. I would rather encourage you guys to use like, you know, spiralized zucchini, or use like real sea spaghetti, or just, you know, use some seaweed you buy and use that as noodles instead. I mean, it may not be exactly like noodles, but they're gonna be a lot healthier than stupid kelp noodles. Yeah, and then I've also sourced my seaweeds from like Europe, New Zealand, and I try to like avoid like China generally. And Prop 65, like the nori I get actually doesn't have a Prop 65 warning on it. It's actually rawnori.com, I believe, is the website, and it's a really good brand. So actually that'd be another one I'd get. I like the nori a lot. But other than that, the heavy metals and Prop 65, like Prop 65 warnings is like on everything, so it really doesn't mean as much as it should, in my personal opinion. You know, and like the dose is in the poison. So if you're eating seaweed every day and pounding it and there's a Prop 65 warning, that's not a good thing. For me personally, what I choose to do, if there is a Prop 65, it's not like I'm going to not buy it, but I'm going to buy that and then eat it in smaller quantities, because there are higher levels of potentially some heavy metals, and I don't want them to accumulate in me. But if I'm eating a diversity of foods and including things like cilantro and parsley and spirulina and chlorella, which are known to pull out heavy metals, you know, I think I'm going to be fine. That's my personal opinion on that. Of course, you guys should do your own research. All right, so next question is from Jay Van Wyck. Triton plastic is not good. The reviews on the one tribest glass vacuum pump are bad. What's your experience with that product for returns? All right, so I do not recommend Tribest's glass vacuum blender. It's actually their personal vacuum blender. I mean, I thought the carafe was decent. I don't like Tribest vacuum pump. I mean, it does work. It eats batteries. You could get a AA battery adapter that you could plug in. I have a link in the video, like troubleshooting vacuum blenders. Link down below if I remember, where I talk about this. But the problem with the Tribest glass vacuum blender is that the motor is just so weak. Like the motor itself is just, it's a personal blender. It's not for heavy duty juicing or blending tasks. So I hope that somebody comes out with either a stainless steel or glass vacuum blender at some point, and I'll be sure to switch over. You know, I was talking to Blend Tech to try to get them to do a stainless steel version, which they talked about and they seem very interested in. But then, like, my contact Tom Dixon got ousted from the company, so that's not going to happen anytime soon. So yeah, so I would not recommend that. I have had a few returns on them. You know, some people just didn't like it, and then some people, like, they were like, the motor went bad. So that's what I'll say about that. The next question is from the Don Lee Boy. Any updates on the $40 vacuum blenders? The links on the other video no longer work. All right, yeah, so I mean, you got to watch my videos at the time they come out. You got to subscribe to my channel. Click subscribe down below and make sure you click the bell to get notified as many videos come out. As I find good deals, I'll make videos about them, and I have such a big following that, you know, like, people will watch it, they'll buy it, and then they'll be sold out. You know, that thing has actually gone in and out of stock maybe about 3 or 4 times. So if you continually to check, maybe they'll come back in stock. Basically, that was a closeout price. So if you guys find it, you're really lucky, because what happened is, in my opinion, the manufacturer from China shipped over a bunch to Amazon, and they put it on Amazon. They basically didn't sell at Amazon, and then they were paying for storage fees at Amazon because they weren't selling. And they cleared them out to like a clearance wholesaler. They bought them all, and then now they're selling them one piece at a time for significantly below cost. I bought another $30 vacuum blender also on eBay that is now also out of stock. Otherwise, I would have made a video about it, but I haven't tested that one yet either. So yeah, good luck. So next question is from Amy Ruris, but question about water fasting. John, do you think it is necessary to water fast in order to remove potential mucoid plaque in the small intestines? All right, Amy. So I originally did a rise and shine cleanse, and what I saw come out of me were these ropes that were described as mucoid plaque. Was that really mucoid plaque? Was it toxins in my colon? To this day, I don't really know, and I'm not going to be one of the raw foods that say, you got mucoid plaque, you got 20 pounds of mucoid plaque. You need to drink fruit juice and go on a fruit diet to get it out, or water fast. I'm not going to tell you guys that. What I'll tell you guys is that we probably have toxins in our guts that have been collected over the years. It's probably a good thing to, you know, eat healthfully, and your bodies will detox it over time. If you want to get and do some kind of cleanse to kind of maybe potentially get that out, if it does really exist, you guys could do that. You know, I personally would not water fast to remove mucoid plaque in the small intestines, because when you water fast, you're not eating any food. So, you know, you're really not having too much of bowel movements. You might have a little bit stuff come out and stuff, but not a lot. I think, you know, I would do like psyllium and bentonite to remove mucoid plaque, but I think the stuff that came out of me was probably the psyllium and bentonite that formed in little ropes. I mean, I don't really know. What I will tell you is that I think it's good to juice on a regular basis and eat a raw foods diet and eat lower on the food chain, and, you know, process your food minimally, and over time, I believe you will, you know, your body will detox itself if working properly. Next question is from Ashton, UK. Hi John, where do green powder, prebiotic fiber supplements, and protein concentrates fit in your regime? If not, why? All right. So Ashton, so number one, the easiest one first, protein concentrates do not fit in my regime. I will repeat, protein concentrates do not fit in my regime, and I think they are a bad thing out in the world to have, because it makes vegans think that they need a protein supplement like pea protein powder and all these stupid things because their diet is deficient in protein. If you eat a properly planned diet, whether it's raw or vegan, you're going to get enough protein, okay? So how do you get enough protein on a plant-based diet? You want to eat lots of leafy green vegetables, algae powders, and eat enough calories of a wide variety of different foods, you know, and not limit yourself to one food category. But even if you eat just fruit, you can get enough protein if you eat enough fruit. That being said, I prefer to get my nutrient needs met, including protein, from a wide variety of leaves, fruits, okra at this time of year, you know, peppers, tomatoes, figs I had yesterday. I'm getting a mesa pote later. You know, I had some beans and rice, mushrooms. Yeah, so we don't need these protein supplements. And if you think you do need a protein supplement because you just want to top it off, I would encourage you guys to get a whole food protein supplement, such as a duckweed powder, also called lentine powder, or something like an algae powder, such as chlorella, spirulina, or even like a wheatgrass powder, or kale powder, or barley grass powder. Those are concentrated greens that have high levels of proteins compared to other you know, foods, but more importantly, they come in a food-based matrix with other things besides just the proteins, including especially lots of polyphenols and micronutrients. So, okay, that's the first one. Next question is green powder. So I am a fan of green powder if the green powder will allow you to eat a greater diversity. So, you know, I generally don't like to take, you know, moringa powder because I have a moringa tree that I would rather harvest greens off the moringa tree and eat those instead of take a moringa powder. Certainly, if I did not have a moringa tree, it'd be likely that I'd get a moringa powder. You know, I don't grow wheatgrass or barley grass, so I have a wheatgrass and barley grass powder. But it's a rare day that I'll actually buy a kale powder unless it's on clearance or something. And I could use it for travel because I have kale and other greens that are similar to kale. You know, I would really not buy a spinach powder because it could be high in oxalates. And I do grow spinach sometimes a year. And if basically, here's the thing, if I could find greens fresh, I prefer fresh over dried. And even over dried, I'd prefer to juice greens and drink the juice so I could concentrate greens that way instead of buying them dried. All right, so that's the next one you asked about. And then prebiotic fiber supplements, so that's a big check mark. Yes, I'm a big fan of prebiotic fiber supplements, and not just one kind of prebiotic fiber. There's many different kinds of prebiotic fibers, and I'm taking as many of them as I could find to see how it will change and modulate my gut microbiome. And I'm taking many different kinds of fibers. Some people may react negatively. I had like an ex-girlfriend who would, if she took psyllium husk fiber, she would violently get ill. So she really couldn't take that. So you got to be careful. But my goal is to diversify my fiber intake through any means necessary. First off, I'd like to eat as many different kinds of foods with fiber in them in the food matrix, but I'm not adverse to eating supplemental fiber that has been extracted from, I don't know, different foods that I might not normally be eating. All right, next question is from Sue Yaj. Do you drink all your juices on an empty stomach? Isn't it a bad idea to drink juice along with food? Then it won't go right into your bloodstream, right? All right. So here's the thing. So I do not drink all my juices on an empty stomach. I may drink one juice a day on an empty stomach because when I wake up in the morning, my stomach's empty, and then I drink a juice. But after that, I've already drunk one juice. And then like today, I basically didn't eat anything. I had 3 juices. So I had the cactus fruit jicama juice first, then I had my green juice, and then I had a black wine grape juice mixed with jicama and honeydew melon and ginger juice. And I had those 3 first before eating any food. So I don't know, was that on an empty stomach or not? But here's the thing, I will drink juice in between meals. So if I just eat a fig meal and then a couple hours later I get thirsty because I'm dehydrated, I'll drink a juice. You know, it's still good for hydration. It's still going to get absorbed. It's still going to have faster absorption than, you know, eating whole foods would. Maybe it's not as fast if your stomach is completely empty, but I don't really worry about that. I'm not trying to be here and be perfect and stuff. I'm just trying to do the best I can, and I want you guys to do the best I can. And you know, hey, if drinking a fresh juice is gonna get you to not eat McDonald's, not eat some vegan cookies or some, you know, Coke or something worse, right? It's a good thing, and don't necessarily worry about doing it perfectly exactly right, you know? Maybe when I was younger I might worry about that a little bit more, but you know, these days, you know, cut yourself a break, guys, and it's not worth all the stress. All right, that's what I'm gonna tell you. All right, last question is from PJ Smalley. John, you are the man. Like the Instantpot mentioned, do you have any content with Instantpot recipes? So on this channel, actually, I don't think I've made any Instantpot videos yet, aside from showing it and letting people know that I do use it as part of my diet. I might do that in the future. Most of my Instantpot recipes are actually on my Growing Your Greens channel, because I harvest greens and other things from my garden generally, and I'll cook them in the Instantpot. And so I'll put links down below to Growing Your Greens, and just go to Growing Your Greens and search for Instantpot. You'll see a couple videos I've made with the Instantpot on that channel. So that's pretty much it for this episode. If you guys enjoyed this episode, hey, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. That helps out the YouTube algorithm, get this video out to more people. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below, and make sure you click the little bell to get notified as many videos come out. I have videos coming out every 5 to 7 days. You don't know where to show up or what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel, and I don't want you guys to miss out on any one episode, because something in that episode may change your life. Finally, be sure to check my past episodes. The past episodes are wealth of knowledge. Over 600 episodes at this time, dedicated to teach you guys all about how to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables and get them into you in the healthiest way possible, so that you could have a greater level of health. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.